Question 1. Upon reviewing the available options for a new Maximo asset management solution, which approach best aligns with the principles of effective and responsible implementation, considering the need for robust functionality, user adoption, and adherence to best practices in asset management? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive evaluation of potential solutions against defined business requirements, including stakeholder input, pilot testing, and a review of vendor support and long-term viability. Option B. Choose the solution that is most widely adopted in the market based on general industry trends, without specific validation for the organization's unique needs. Option C. Prioritize the solution recommended by a single, highly regarded industry influencer, without independent verification. Option D. Select the solution with the lowest upfront cost, assuming all vendors offer comparable core functionalities. The correct answer is D. Select the solution with the lowest upfront cost, assuming all vendors offer comparable core functionalities. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because the implementation of a new Maximo asset management solution requires a thorough understanding of best practices to ensure successful adoption and compliance with regulatory frameworks. The chosen approach must not only align with technical requirements, but also with the overarching principles of data integrity, security, and operational efficiency, which are often implicitly or explicitly governed by industry standards and potentially specific regulations relevant to asset management in the context of the exam's jurisdiction. Careful judgment is required to balance immediate project needs with long-term strategic goals and adherence to established guidelines. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, evidence-based evaluation of potential solutions against defined criteria. This methodology ensures that the selected solution is not only technically sound, but also demonstrably meets the organization's specific needs and aligns with any applicable regulatory or compliance requirements. By involving stakeholders and conducting pilot testing, it mitigates risks associated with implementation, fosters user buy-in, and validates the solution's effectiveness in a real-world environment. This systematic process is crucial for demonstrating due diligence and responsible application of technology, which are core tenets of professional conduct in IT asset management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction, without a comprehensive evaluation of functionality or compliance, risks regulatory or ethical failures. Organizations have a responsibility to implement systems that are secure, reliable, and capable of meeting operational and reporting obligations. A decision based purely on the lowest initial cost could lead to a system that is inadequate, insecure, or fails to meet compliance standards, potentially resulting in data breaches, operational disruptions, or penalties. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the popularity of a solution without rigorous testing or validation fails to demonstrate professional diligence. This can lead to the adoption of a system that is not fit for purpose, does not integrate well with existing infrastructure, or poses unforeseen risks. Ethically, professionals are expected to make informed decisions based on objective assessment, not hearsay, to protect the organization's assets and reputation. A third incorrect approach that bypasses stakeholder consultation and pilot testing introduces significant implementation risks. Without input from end users and operational teams, the chosen solution may not meet practical needs, leading to user resistance and reduced adoption. The lack of pilot testing means potential issues are not identified and resolved before full deployment, increasing the likelihood of costly rework and operational disruption. This demonstrates a failure to manage project risks effectively and to ensure the solution's suitability for the intended users and environment. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a phased approach, clearly defining requirements and objectives, conducting thorough market research and vendor evaluations, performing detailed risk assessments, engaging relevant stakeholders throughout the process, and implementing a robust testing and validation strategy before final deployment. This structured methodology ensures that decisions are informed, risks are managed, and the chosen solution aligns with both business needs and professional standards. Question 2. Operational review demonstrates that a recently implemented Maximo asset management solution is not delivering the anticipated improvements in maintenance efficiency and asset lifecycle cost reduction. Which of the following evaluation approaches would best identify the root cause of this underperformance? Option A. Engage the Maximo vendor for an immediate assessment of potential software defects or performance limitations. Option B. Conduct a series of user interviews to identify common operational mistakes and areas of user confusion with the Maximo interface. Option C. Recommend a complete reimplementation of the Maximo solution, assuming the current setup is fundamentally flawed. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive audit of the Maximo system's configuration, data integrity, and user adoption rates, correlating findings with initial business objectives. The correct answer is B. Conduct a series of user interviews to identify common operational mistakes and areas of user confusion with the Maximo interface. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management where a newly implemented Maximo solution, intended to improve operational efficiency and compliance, is not yielding the expected benefits. The difficulty lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause of the underperformance. It requires a nuanced understanding of how Maximo integrates with existing business processes, the quality of the data being fed into the system, and the effectiveness of user adoption and training. A superficial assessment could lead to incorrect conclusions about the software itself, rather than identifying process or people-related issues. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between a poorly configured system, inadequate user proficiency, or fundamental flaws in the underlying asset management strategy. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice in this situation involves a comprehensive, multifaceted evaluation that begins with a thorough review of the Maximo configuration against the documented business requirements and the intended asset management strategy. This approach is best because it systematically verifies that the system is set up to support the desired outcomes. It then proceeds to assess data integrity, ensuring that the information within Maximo is accurate, complete, and timely, as this is fundamental to reliable reporting and decision-making. Finally, it examines user adoption and training effectiveness, recognizing that even a perfectly configured system will fail if users are not adequately trained or do not embrace its use. This holistic approach aligns with best practices in system implementation and ongoing asset management, ensuring that the technology serves its intended purpose and delivers tangible value. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this thoroughness demonstrates due diligence in ensuring the deployed solution meets its objectives and provides a reliable basis for operational decisions, which can have implications for safety, environmental compliance, and financial reporting. Incorrect approaches analysis. Focusing solely on user error without investigating system configuration or data quality is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to acknowledge that user proficiency is often a symptom of inadequate training or a poorly designed user interface, which are configuration issues. It also overlooks the possibility that users may be making errors due to incorrect or incomplete data, which is a data integrity problem. This narrow focus can lead to blame without resolution and does not address the systemic issues. Attributing the underperformance solely to the Maximo software vendor without conducting an internal review of configuration, data, and user adoption is also professionally unsound. This approach abdicates responsibility for internal implementation and operational oversight. It is ethically questionable to blame an external party without first exhausting all internal diagnostic steps. This can lead to protracted disputes and a failure to achieve the desired operational improvements. Concluding that the system is inherently flawed and requires a complete reimplementation without a detailed root cause analysis is premature and professionally irresponsible. This approach bypasses the critical steps of identifying specific configuration gaps, data issues, or training deficiencies that could be rectified with targeted adjustments. It represents a failure to apply a systematic problem-solving methodology and can result in significant wasted resources and time. Professional reasoning. When faced with a situation where a deployed solution is not meeting expectations, professionals should adopt a structured problem-solving framework. This begins with clearly defining the expected outcomes and then systematically investigating potential causes. A logical sequence involves 1. Verifying system configuration against requirements, 2. Assessing data quality and flow, 3. Evaluating user adoption and training, and 4. Analyzing the underlying business processes. This iterative process allows for the isolation of root causes and the development of targeted solutions. Professionals must maintain objectivity, avoid premature conclusions, and prioritize evidence-based diagnosis over assumptions or blame. This methodical approach ensures that resources are applied effectively and that the most sustainable solutions are implemented. Question 3. Examination of the data shows that the organization is implementing Maximo Asset Management Solutions V3 and is considering various approaches to data governance. The primary objective is to ensure data integrity and compliance with relevant industry regulations. One proposed approach is to adopt a widely recognized, generic data governance framework that has proven successful in other industries. Another approach suggests prioritizing the development of custom data validation rules based on perceived operational needs, without a thorough review of specific regulatory mandates. A third approach advocates for a comprehensive review of all applicable regulatory requirements and industry-specific guidelines, followed by the tailoring of Maximo's data governance features to meet these specific obligations, which approach best aligns with the principles of responsible and compliant application of Maximo Asset Management Solutions V3. Option A. Implementing a data governance model that focuses solely on technical data security measures, assuming this will inherently satisfy all regulatory needs. Option B. Prioritizing the development of custom data validation rules based on perceived operational needs, without a thorough review of specific regulatory mandates. Option C. Adopting a widely recognized, generic data governance framework that has proven successful in other industries. Option D. A comprehensive review of all applicable regulatory requirements and industry-specific guidelines, followed by the tailoring of Maximo's data governance features to meet these specific obligations. The correct answer is D. A comprehensive review of all applicable regulatory requirements and industry-specific guidelines, followed by the tailoring of Maximo's data governance features to meet these specific obligations. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in applying enterprise asset management solutions like Maximo, ensuring that the chosen best practice for data governance aligns with the specific regulatory environment and the organization's operational needs. The challenge lies in balancing the desire for standardized, efficient processes with the imperative to comply with relevant regulations, which can vary significantly. Careful judgment is required to avoid implementing a solution that is either non-compliant or inefficient. The correct approach, which involves tailoring data governance practices to align with the specific regulatory framework governing the organization's operations and industry, represents best professional practice. This is because regulatory compliance is paramount. Failure to adhere to these frameworks can result in significant penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. By actively seeking to understand and integrate these requirements into the data governance strategy, the organization demonstrates a commitment to legal and ethical conduct. This proactive stance ensures that Maximo is configured and utilized in a manner that supports both operational efficiency and regulatory adherence. An incorrect approach that prioritizes a generic, industry-agnostic best practice without considering the specific regulatory landscape is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of due diligence regarding compliance obligations. For instance, if the organization operates in a sector with stringent data privacy regulations, e.g., GDPR if in the EU or HIPAA if in the US healthcare sector, adopting a generic approach that doesn't account for data anonymization, access controls, or retention policies would constitute a significant regulatory failure. Similarly, an approach that focuses solely on technical implementation without considering the business impact and user adoption, while not directly a regulatory failure, can lead to the system not being used effectively, indirectly impacting compliance by creating data gaps or inaccuracies. Another incorrect approach might be to implement a highly complex, restrictive data governance model that is not mandated by any regulation. This can lead to user frustration, workarounds that bypass controls, and ultimately, a less effective and potentially non-compliant system due to data integrity issues. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-step approach. First, thoroughly identify and understand all applicable regulatory frameworks and industry-specific guidelines. Second, assess the organization's current data management practices and identify gaps relative to these requirements. Third, evaluate different data governance strategies within Maximo, considering their alignment with both regulatory mandates and operational objectives. Fourth, engage with legal counsel and compliance officers to validate the chosen approach. Finally, implement the chosen strategy with a plan for ongoing monitoring and adaptation to evolving regulations. Question 4. Performance analysis shows that a critical asset, initially classified as medium criticality based on its original installation documentation, is now being flagged by the operations team as a significant bottleneck and a frequent cause of production delays, despite its documented maintenance history showing no major failures. Which of the following represents the most appropriate best practice approach to address this discrepancy? Option A. Immediately update the asset's criticality to high based on the operations team's feedback and the recent production delays. Option B. Maintain the existing medium criticality rating, as the documented maintenance history does not indicate a need for change. Option C. Initiate a formal review of the asset's criticality assessment, gathering current operational data, failure history, and stakeholder input to reevaluate its true importance and risk profile. Option D. Conduct a detailed technical inspection of the asset to identify any potential physical defects, without considering the operational impact or historical documentation. Correct answer is C. Initiate a formal review of the asset's criticality assessment, gathering current operational data, failure history, and stakeholder input to reevaluate its true importance and risk profile. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management, where a discrepancy arises between documented asset criticality and actual operational impact. The professional challenge lies in reconciling these differing perspectives to ensure that maintenance strategies and resource allocation align with genuine business risk, rather than solely relying on potentially outdated or inaccurate initial assessments. This requires a nuanced understanding of both the technical aspects of asset management and the strategic business objectives. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review and validation of the asset criticality assessment. This means going beyond the initial documentation and actively engaging with operational stakeholders, maintenance teams, and reliability engineers to gather current data on asset performance, failure history, and the business impact of downtime. This process ensures that the criticality ratings accurately reflect the asset's current importance and risk profile. This aligns with best practices in asset management, which emphasize continuous improvement and data-driven decision-making. Specifically, it supports the principles of risk-based maintenance and proactive asset management, aiming to optimize resource allocation and minimize potential losses, thereby adhering to the spirit of efficient and effective asset stewardship often implied in regulatory frameworks governing operational integrity and financial prudence. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to solely rely on the existing, potentially outdated criticality documentation without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge that asset importance and operational context can change over time due to technological advancements, shifts in business strategy, or changes in the operating environment. Ethically, this can lead to misallocation of resources, potentially neglecting critical assets or overinvesting in less important ones, which can have financial implications and impact operational safety and reliability. Another incorrect approach is to immediately reclassify the asset as high criticality based on a single recent failure event, without a broader analysis of its historical performance and overall impact. While a recent failure is a significant data point, it may be an anomaly rather than indicative of a systemic issue. This reactive approach can lead to inefficient resource allocation and may not address the root cause of the problem. It deviates from a systematic, risk-based approach to asset management, potentially leading to compliance issues if maintenance strategies are not aligned with true risk. A third incorrect approach is to dismiss the operational team's concerns as subjective and maintain the existing criticality rating based on initial documentation. This demonstrates a lack of collaboration and a failure to recognize the value of frontline operational knowledge. It can lead to a breakdown in trust between departments and a failure to address genuine operational risks, potentially leading to significant business disruptions and reputational damage, which are often implicitly or explicitly addressed by regulations focused on operational continuity and stakeholder confidence. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic, data-driven, and collaborative approach to asset criticality assessment. This involves 1. establishing clear criteria for criticality assessment that are aligned with business objectives and risk tolerance. 2. Implementing a process for regular review and validation of criticality ratings, incorporating operational feedback and performance data. 3. Utilizing a combination of quantitative and qualitative methods to assess criticality, considering factors such as failure frequency, consequence of failure, safety, environmental, financial, operational, and strategic importance. 4. Fostering open communication and collaboration between asset management, operations, maintenance, and reliability teams. 5. Documenting the assessment process and the rationale behind criticality ratings to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 5. The efficiency study reveals that the current configuration of the work order tracking application in Maximo Asset Management Solutions, V3, is not adequately capturing critical data points required for upcoming environmental compliance audits. Specifically, the system lacks the necessary custom fields to record detailed emissions data per asset, which is a mandatory reporting requirement. What is the most appropriate professional approach to address this implementation challenge? Option A. Implement the custom fields quickly to meet the audit deadline, deferring detailed validation and documentation until after the initial audit period to minimize disruption. Option B. Develop and implement the required custom fields within the work order tracking application, ensuring thorough testing and validation against the specific environmental audit requirements, and documenting the configuration changes through a formal change management process. Option C. Manually collect the required emissions data outside of Maximo and maintain it in separate spreadsheets, while only making minor configuration adjustments to the existing work order tracking application. Option D. Proceed with the implementation of custom fields based on the development team's understanding of the data requirements, assuming the captured data will be sufficient for the audit without formal validation against specific regulatory mandates. The correct answer is B. Develop and implement the required custom fields within the work order tracking application, ensuring thorough testing and validation against the specific environmental audit requirements, and documenting the configuration changes through a formal change management process. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a significant bottleneck in the Maximo Asset Management Solutions V3 implementation related to the configuration of the work order tracking application, specifically concerning the integration of custom fields for regulatory compliance reporting. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts the organization's ability to meet its statutory obligations, potentially leading to fines or operational disruptions. The pressure to deliver a functional system quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise data integrity and auditability, which are paramount in regulated environments. The correct approach involves a systematic, documented process for configuring and validating custom fields, ensuring they align with the specific regulatory requirements identified in the efficiency study. This includes thorough testing, user acceptance, and a formal change management process. This represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data accuracy, system reliability, and adherence to regulatory mandates. In the context of C2010-651, this aligns with the principles of applying Maximo solutions to meet business needs, including compliance. The focus on proper configuration and validation ensures that the system accurately captures and reports the data required by relevant authorities, thereby mitigating legal and financial risks. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the formal validation of custom fields, assuming they will function correctly based on developer assumptions. This is professionally unacceptable, as it introduces a high risk of data misinterpretation or omission, directly violating the principle of accurate record keeping mandated by regulatory frameworks. Another incorrect approach is to implement custom fields without adequate documentation of their purpose and configuration, making future audits or troubleshooting extremely difficult and potentially leading to noncompliance if the system's logic cannot be clearly demonstrated. This failure to document is a breach of professional responsibility and can hinder regulatory oversight. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over thorough testing of the custom field's impact on existing workflows and reporting. This can lead to unintended consequences, such as inaccurate reporting or system instability, which are detrimental to operational efficiency and compliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape and its implications for system configuration. This involves engaging with compliance officers and end users early in the process to define requirements precisely. The next step is to design a configuration that directly addresses these requirements, followed by rigorous testing and validation. A robust change management process, including thorough documentation and stakeholder sign-off, is crucial to ensure that any modifications are controlled, auditable, and compliant. Question 6. Analysis of the most effective strategy for determining the initial set of data fields to be configured within a new Maximo Asset Management Solutions implementation, considering the need to balance comprehensive asset management capabilities with user adoption and system performance, while adhering to regulatory frameworks. Option A. Mandate the collection of all conceivable data fields from the outset to ensure maximum data availability for future analysis, regardless of immediate necessity. Option B. Rely exclusively on the default data fields provided by the Maximo vendor without any organizational-specific analysis or customization. Option C. Implement a phased data collection approach, prioritizing essential fields based on direct impact on operational efficiency and regulatory compliance, with iterative refinement based on user feedback and system performance. Option D. Defer data field selection entirely to individual departmental managers to accommodate their specific, localized needs without centralized oversight. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased data collection approach, prioritizing essential fields based on direct impact on operational efficiency and regulatory compliance, with iterative refinement based on user feedback and system performance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in Maximo Asset Management Solutions, balancing the need for comprehensive data capture with the practical realities of user adoption and system performance. The challenge lies in identifying the critical few data points that are essential for effective asset management and regulatory compliance, versus the trivial many that can overwhelm users and slow down system processes. Overcollection of data can lead to data integrity issues, increased training burdens, and reduced system responsiveness, all of which can hinder the successful application of Maximo. The pressure to capture every conceivable piece of information can stem from a desire for exhaustive reporting or a misunderstanding of what truly drives asset performance and compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased, data-driven strategy that prioritizes essential data elements based on their direct impact on asset lifecycle management, operational efficiency, and regulatory adherence. This aligns with best practices in system implementation, which advocate for a lean and focused approach to data collection. By starting with core data requirements, such as asset identifiers, location, criticality, maintenance history, and key performance indicators, KPI, directly linked to operational or safety mandates, the implementation team ensures that the system provides immediate value and supports critical business functions. This approach also facilitates user adoption by presenting a manageable and relevant dataset, reducing the learning curve and increasing the likelihood of consistent data entry. Furthermore, it allows for iterative refinement of data requirements based on early user feedback and observed system performance, ensuring that additional data fields are only introduced when a clear business need and demonstrable benefit are identified, thereby maintaining system agility and user engagement. This methodical approach is ethically sound as it aims to deliver a functional and effective solution that meets genuine business needs without imposing unnecessary burdens. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to mandate the collection of all possible data fields from the outset, assuming that more data is always better. This fails to consider the practical implications for end users, potentially leading to data fatigue, inconsistent or inaccurate data entry, and a significant increase in system processing time. From a regulatory perspective, while compliance is important, an overabundance of irrelevant data does not inherently improve compliance and can, in fact, obscure critical compliance-related information. This approach is ethically questionable, as it prioritizes a theoretical ideal over the practical usability and effectiveness of the solution for the intended users. Another incorrect approach is to defer all data field decisions to individual departments without a centralized governance strategy. This can lead to a fragmented and inconsistent dataset across the organization, making enterprise-wide reporting and analysis extremely difficult, if not impossible. It also increases the risk of duplicate or conflicting data, undermining data integrity. Ethically, this approach fails to provide a unified and reliable system, potentially leading to poor decision-making based on flawed data. It also neglects the responsibility to ensure that the implemented solution meets overarching organizational and regulatory requirements. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on vendor default configurations, without a thorough analysis of organizational needs and regulatory obligations. While vendor defaults can provide a starting point, they are rarely tailored to the specific operational context and compliance landscape of an organization. This can result in a system that either lacks essential data for compliance or collects excessive, non-essential data, leading to the same challenges as the other incorrect approaches. This approach is professionally deficient as it abdicates the responsibility of critical analysis and strategic decision-making to the vendor, potentially leading to a suboptimal or non-compliant implementation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, needs-based approach to data collection in Maximo implementations. This involves 1. Clearly defining business objectives and regulatory requirements that the Maximo solution must support. 2. Conducting a thorough analysis of existing asset management processes and identifying critical data points required for effective operation and compliance. 3. Prioritizing data fields based on their impact on core functionalities, reporting needs, and regulatory mandates. 4. Implementing a phased data collection strategy, starting with essential fields and iteratively adding more based on validated business needs and user feedback. 5. Establishing clear data governance policies and procedures to ensure data quality and consistency. This systematic process ensures that the Maximo solution is not only technically sound, but also practically usable, ethically implemented, and effectively supports the organization's strategic goals and compliance obligations. Question 7. The monitoring system demonstrates an intermittent failure to record critical operational parameters for a key piece of machinery. While the machine continues to operate, the data feed into Maximo Asset Management is sporadic, potentially impacting future maintenance scheduling and performance analysis. The project team is under pressure to restore full functionality quickly to avoid any perceived operational disruption. What is the most professionally responsible approach to address this situation? Option A. Immediately investigate the root cause of the data feed interruption by reviewing system logs, network connectivity, and the configuration of the monitoring device and its integration with Maximo before implementing any corrective actions. Option B. Escalate the issue to the vendor of the monitoring system and await their instructions for a resolution. Without performing any internal diagnostics, Option C. Advise the operations team to manually log the parameters on paper and store them, as the automated system is unreliable, and focus on other project deliverables. Option D. Temporarily adjust the Maximo system to manually input estimated data for the missing parameters until the monitoring system can be fully repaired, prioritizing the appearance of continuous data. The correct answer is A. Immediately investigate the root cause of the data feed interruption by reviewing system logs, network connectivity, and the configuration of the monitoring device and its integration with Maximo before implementing any corrective actions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term integrity of asset data and compliance with regulatory reporting requirements. The core tension lies in the potential for a quick fix to mask underlying issues, which could lead to inaccurate reporting and non-compliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data accuracy and adherence to established Maximo workflows. By investigating the root cause of the monitoring system's anomaly, the team ensures that any corrective actions taken are appropriate and do not introduce further data corruption. This aligns with the principles of good data governance and the regulatory expectation that asset management systems reflect the true state of assets. In the context of C 2010-651, this approach supports the fundamental principles of applying Maximo for reliable asset management and reporting. An incorrect approach that involves bypassing standard diagnostic procedures and directly manipulating system configurations without understanding the impact risks, introducing further inaccuracies. This could lead to a situation where the monitoring system appears to be functioning, but the underlying data is flawed. This failure to investigate and address the root cause is a direct contravention of professional diligence and could result in regulatory noncompliance if the inaccurate data is used for reporting or decision-making. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the anomaly because it does not immediately impact critical operations, is professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of proactive problem-solving and a disregard for potential future consequences. Regulatory frameworks often mandate accurate and timely reporting of asset status, and ignoring anomalies can lead to significant compliance breaches when these issues are discovered during audits or investigations. The professional reasoning process should involve a systematic approach to problem solving. First, acknowledge and document the anomaly. Second, initiate a diagnostic process to identify the root cause, utilizing available Maximo tools and logs. Third, consult relevant documentation and subject matter experts. Fourth, propose and implement a solution that addresses the root cause while adhering to Maximo best practices and any applicable regulatory guidelines. Finally, verify the effectiveness of the solution and update documentation accordingly. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with professional and regulatory standards. Question 8. Market research demonstrates that organizations often face significant challenges in migrating historical asset data to a new version of Maximo Asset Management, particularly when dealing with varied data quality across different departments. A critical upgrade is planned, and the project team is debating the best strategy for data migration and validation to ensure compliance and operational continuity. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for a timely upgrade with the imperative of maintaining data integrity and regulatory compliance? Option A. Delegate the entire data migration and validation process to the IT department, with minimal involvement from operational and compliance teams, to streamline the process and reduce departmental workload. Option B. Prioritize a complete data migration of all historical records, followed by a broad user acceptance testing phase across all departments simultaneously to identify and rectify issues post-deployment. Option C. Implement a phased data migration strategy, starting with critical asset data for core operational departments, accompanied by rigorous data validation and reconciliation processes before and after each phase, with targeted user training. Option D. Focus on migrating only the most recent and essential asset data, assuming that older data is less critical and can be archived or re-entered if needed to expedite the go-live date. The correct answer is B. Prioritize a complete data migration of all historical records, followed by a broad user acceptance testing phase across all departments simultaneously to identify and rectify issues post-deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in Maximo Asset Management, managing the expectations and data integrity requirements of diverse stakeholder groups during a critical system upgrade. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for system functionality with the long-term implications of data accuracy and compliance. Careful judgment is required to ensure the upgrade not only meets technical requirements, but also adheres to the principles of data governance and regulatory compliance, which are paramount in asset management. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, phased rollout that includes thorough data validation and user acceptance testing. This aligns with the principles of good data management and system implementation, ensuring that the upgraded Maximo system is reliable, accurate, and compliant with relevant regulations. By involving key stakeholders in a controlled manner, it mitigates risks associated with data corruption or misinterpretation, thereby upholding the integrity of asset data, which is often subject to regulatory scrutiny. This methodical approach fosters trust and ensures that the system's output is defensible and auditable. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid deployment without adequate data validation would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It risks introducing inaccurate asset data into the system, which could lead to non-compliance with operational safety standards, environmental regulations, or financial reporting requirements. Such a failure could result in penalties, reputational damage, and potentially unsafe operational practices. Another incorrect approach that ignores the specific data needs of certain departments, prioritizing only the most vocal stakeholders, would also be ethically problematic. It fails to ensure equitable access to accurate information and could disadvantage certain operational areas, leading to inefficiencies and potential compliance gaps. Furthermore, bypassing established change control procedures for expediency is a direct violation of internal governance and often regulatory requirements for system changes, undermining audit trails and accountability. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of project objectives, regulatory mandates, and stakeholder needs. This involves conducting a thorough risk assessment for each implementation phase, prioritizing data, integrity, and compliance throughout the process. A phased approach, coupled with robust testing and validation, allows for iterative refinement and minimizes the impact of potential issues. Open communication with all stakeholders, managing expectations proactively, and adhering to established governance frameworks are crucial for successful and compliant system implementations. Question 9. Research into the implementation of a new Maximo asset management solution for a large utility company has revealed a critical challenge in migrating historical asset data from disparate legacy systems. The project team is under significant pressure to meet a go-live deadline, and there is a proposal to perform a single, bulk data import of all historical asset records, with the understanding that any data discrepancies will be addressed by the operations team post-migration. What is the most professionally sound approach to managing this data migration challenge, considering the regulatory environment governing utility asset management and financial reporting? Option A. Engage a third-party data cleansing service to perform a comprehensive audit and correction of all historical data before the migration, even if this significantly delays the project timeline. Option B. Proceed with a single, large-scale data import to meet the deadline, relying on end users to identify and report any data inaccuracies after the system is live, and address these issues reactively. Option C. Prioritize the migration of only the most critical asset data for the initial go-live, deferring the migration of less critical historical data to a subsequent phase, with a plan to address any data gaps or inconsistencies as they arise. Option D. Implement a phased data migration strategy, migrating data in manageable batches, and conducting thorough validation and reconciliation at each stage before proceeding to the next, ensuring data integrity and compliance throughout the process. The correct answer is D. Implement a phased data migration strategy, migrating data in manageable batches, and conducting thorough validation and reconciliation at each stage before proceeding to the next, ensuring data integrity and compliance throughout the process. Explanation. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in Maximo asset management solutions, specifically concerning data migration and validation. The professional challenge lies in balancing the urgency of project timelines with the absolute necessity of data integrity, which directly impacts regulatory compliance and operational decision-making. Failure to ensure accurate data can lead to incorrect asset valuations, non-compliance with reporting requirements, and flawed maintenance strategies, all of which have significant financial and operational repercussions. The correct approach, which involves a phased data migration with rigorous validation at each stage, represents best professional practice because it systematically mitigates risk. This method aligns with fundamental principles of data governance and auditability, ensuring that any discrepancies are identified and rectified early in the process. From a regulatory perspective, this thoroughness is crucial for demonstrating due diligence and adherence to any applicable asset management standards or financial reporting regulations that rely on accurate asset data. It allows for a controlled transition, minimizing the potential for widespread errors that could compromise compliance. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over accuracy by performing a single, large data import without intermediate validation introduces significant regulatory and ethical risks. This haste can lead to the introduction of corrupted or incomplete data into the Maximo system. Such errors could result in non-compliance with financial reporting standards that require accurate asset registers, or with operational safety regulations that depend on correct asset information for maintenance scheduling. Ethically, it represents a failure to uphold professional responsibility by knowingly or negligently allowing flawed data to impact critical business processes and stakeholder trust. Another incorrect approach, which involves relying solely on end-user feedback for data validation post-migration, is also professionally unacceptable. While user feedback is valuable, it is often subjective and may not catch systemic data integrity issues or subtle inaccuracies that have regulatory implications. This approach outsources a critical validation step, potentially delaying the discovery of compliance-related errors and increasing the burden on operational staff to correct issues that should have been addressed during the implementation phase. This can lead to a breach of professional duty to implement a robust and verifiable system. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based approach. First, identify all critical data elements and their potential impact on regulatory compliance and operational efficiency. Second, design a migration strategy that incorporates multiple checkpoints for data validation, ideally automated where possible, with clear criteria for acceptance. Third, establish clear roles and responsibilities for data ownership and validation. Finally, maintain comprehensive documentation of the migration process, including validation results, to ensure auditability and accountability. This structured approach ensures that the implementation not only meets functional requirements, but also upholds the highest standards of data integrity and regulatory compliance. Question 10. Market research demonstrates that a large manufacturing client is hesitant to fully adopt a new Maximo asset management solution due to concerns about disrupting their established, albeit inefficient, manual maintenance scheduling processes. They fear a steep learning curve for their long-serving technicians and potential data inaccuracies during the transition. What is the most professionally sound approach to address these concerns and ensure a successful Maximo implementation? Option A. Initiate a pilot program in a single, less critical maintenance department to test the system, gather user feedback, and refine processes before a wider rollout. Option B. Implement Maximo with minimal user training, focusing on providing comprehensive documentation for self-learning, and expect immediate full adoption. Option C. Mandate immediate, company-wide deployment of the Maximo system with intensive one-off training sessions for all maintenance staff. Option D. Prioritize the technical configuration of Maximo based on industry best practices, assuming users will adapt to the new system over time. The correct answer is A. Initiate a pilot program in a single, less critical maintenance department to test the system, gather user feedback, and refine processes before a wider rollout. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a client's existing, albeit inefficient, manual processes are deeply ingrained. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate disruption of introducing a new system like Maximo Asset Management with the long-term benefits of improved efficiency, data accuracy, and compliance. Resistance to change from end users, coupled with potential underestimation of the effort required for data migration and user training, creates a significant hurdle. A failure to adequately address these human and procedural factors can lead to project delays, budget overruns, and ultimately, a failed implementation, impacting the organization's ability to meet its operational and regulatory obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a phased rollout, starting with a pilot program in a controlled environment. This strategy allows for early identification and resolution of issues with a smaller user group, minimizing disruption to critical operations. It also provides tangible proof of concept, building confidence and buy-in from stakeholders and end users. This aligns with best professional practice by demonstrating a commitment to user adoption and risk mitigation. From a regulatory perspective, a phased approach allows for more controlled data validation and ensures that any compliance-related data capture mechanisms within Maximo are thoroughly tested before broad deployment, reducing the risk of non-compliance due to system errors. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the system across all departments simultaneously without prior testing or user feedback introduces a high risk of widespread failure. This approach disregards the principle of iterative improvement and user adoption, potentially leading to significant operational downtime and a loss of trust in the new system. Ethically, it fails to adequately support the workforce through a major change. From a regulatory standpoint, a large-scale, untested rollout increases the likelihood of data integrity issues and non-compliance with reporting requirements. Focusing solely on technical configuration and neglecting user training and change management is a critical failure. Maximo's effectiveness is dependent on its users. Without proper training and support, users will revert to old methods or misuse the system, negating the intended benefits and potentially introducing new data errors. This is an ethical failing as it does not equip the workforce for success. It also poses a regulatory risk if accurate data capture and reporting are compromised. Ignoring the client's existing manual processes and attempting to force a complete overhaul from day one can lead to significant user resistance and project delays. While the goal is improvement, a complete disregard for current workflows can alienate users and make them less receptive to the new system. This approach lacks empathy and a strategic understanding of change management, potentially leading to a perception of the system as an imposition rather than a tool for improvement. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, user-centric approach to system implementation. This involves thorough discovery of existing processes, stakeholder engagement, and a clear change management strategy. A phased rollout, starting with pilots, is a proven method for managing risk and ensuring successful adoption. Continuous feedback loops and iterative adjustments are crucial. When faced with resistance, professionals must employ strong communication, training, and support mechanisms, demonstrating the value proposition of the new system and addressing user concerns proactively. Regulatory compliance should be a foundational element, integrated into the design and testing phases, not an afterthought. Question 11. The performance metrics show a significant increase in unscheduled downtime for critical assets following the recent implementation of a new Maximo Asset Management Solutions V3 module designed to enhance predictive maintenance scheduling. The operations team is demanding an immediate resolution, citing potential production losses. What is the most professional and effective approach to address this situation? Option A. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis by reviewing Maximo audit logs, asset data, and the configuration of the new predictive maintenance module, correlating findings with the downtime incidents. Option B. Immediately roll back the new predictive maintenance module to revert to the previous system state, as it is the most likely cause of the increased downtime. Option C. Focus on adjusting the parameters of the new module based on anecdotal feedback from the operations team to quickly reduce downtime, without a full investigation. Option D. Escalate the issue to the module vendor for a fix, assuming the problem lies solely within the software's code. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis by reviewing Maximo audit logs, asset data, and the configuration of the new predictive maintenance module, correlating findings with the downtime incidents. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant increase in unscheduled downtime for critical assets following the recent implementation of a new Maximo Asset Management Solutions V3 module. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts operational efficiency and potentially regulatory compliance, requiring a swift and accurate diagnosis of the root cause. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to hasty decisions that might overlook underlying systemic issues. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation that leverages Maximo's capabilities to identify the specific configuration or process changes that correlate with the increased downtime. This includes reviewing audit logs, asset hierarchies, work order data, and any new workflows or integrations introduced with the module. By cross-referencing these with the performance metrics, the team can pinpoint the exact area of concern. This methodical approach aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that solutions are data-driven and address the actual problem, rather than symptoms. It also upholds ethical responsibilities by prioritizing system stability and reliability, which are crucial for maintaining operational integrity and preventing potential safety or environmental incidents, especially if the assets are critical infrastructure. An incorrect approach would be to immediately roll back the new module without a thorough investigation. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to identify the root cause, leaving the system vulnerable to similar issues in the future and potentially masking a genuine problem with the new functionality that could have been resolved. It also represents a failure to properly implement and test new solutions, a core tenet of IT asset management. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on blaming the vendor or the implementation team without conducting an internal review of how the module was configured and integrated. This is unprofessional as it avoids accountability and hinders learning. It also risks overlooking internal process gaps or user training deficiencies that may have contributed to the problem. Ethically, It demonstrates a lack of commitment to continuous improvement and collaborative problem solving. A third incorrect approach is to implement a quick fix, such as adjusting a single parameter, without understanding the broader implications or testing the solution comprehensively. This is a reactive measure that does not address the underlying systemic issue and could lead to unintended consequences or further disruptions. It fails to meet the professional standard of due diligence and thoroughness in system management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Acknowledging the problem and its impact. 2. Assembling a cross-functional team with relevant expertise. 3. Establishing a clear investigation plan, prioritizing data collection and analysis. 4. Utilizing the diagnostic and reporting capabilities of Maximo to identify correlations. 5. Developing and testing potential solutions in a controlled environment. 6. Implementing the validated solution and monitoring its effectiveness. 7. Documenting the findings and lessons learned for future reference. Question 12. Which approach would be most appropriate when evaluating proposals for a new Maximo asset management solution, given that one of the vendors has been a long-standing and supportive partner for existing systems, but their current proposal has some minor technical gaps compared to a competitor with a more comprehensive offering? Option A. Focus solely on the vendor with the most comprehensive offering, disregarding the value of the existing partnership and potential for future collaboration with the long-standing partner. Option B. Immediately disqualify the competitor with the more comprehensive offering due to the potential disruption of switching from a familiar vendor. Option C. Conduct a thorough, objective evaluation of all proposals against predefined technical and business requirements, giving equal consideration to all vendors regardless of past relationships. Option D. Prioritize the long-standing partner's proposal, focusing on their established relationship and providing them with an opportunity to address the minor technical gaps post-selection. The correct answer is D. Prioritize the long-standing partner's proposal, focusing on their established relationship and providing them with an opportunity to address the minor technical gaps post-selection. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between a vendor's desire to secure future business and the ethical obligation to maintain objectivity and transparency in the selection process. The temptation to favor a vendor who has provided valuable past support, even if not the best fit for the current project, can lead to compromised decision-making. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the selection process remains fair, unbiased, and aligned with the organization's best interests, rather than personal relationships or perceived future benefits. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a rigorous, objective evaluation based on predefined criteria. This aligns with fundamental principles of good governance and procurement, ensuring that the chosen solution will deliver the most value and meet the organization's technical and business requirements. By adhering to a structured evaluation process, the organization mitigates risks associated with selecting an inadequate solution and upholds its commitment to fairness and accountability. This approach also safeguards against potential conflicts of interest and ensures that decisions are defensible and transparent. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking minor deficiencies in a preferred vendor's proposal to maintain a positive relationship or secure future support is ethically flawed. This constitutes a failure to conduct a fair and impartial evaluation, potentially leading to the selection of a suboptimal solution. It violates the principle of acting in the best interest of the organization and can be seen as a form of preferential treatment, undermining the integrity of the procurement process. Another incorrect approach, which involves prematurely dismissing a vendor based on a past negative experience without a thorough reevaluation of their current offering, is also professionally unsound. While past performance is a factor, it should not preclude a vendor from being considered if their current proposal demonstrates significant improvements or a better fit for the project's specific needs. This approach can lead to missed opportunities and a failure to secure the most advantageous solution. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the project's requirements and evaluation criteria. It necessitates a commitment to objectivity, fairness, and transparency throughout the selection process. Professionals should actively manage potential conflicts of interest, document all evaluation steps, and seek to make decisions based on merit and the organization's strategic objectives, rather than personal biases or external pressures. Question 13. The review process indicates a discrepancy in asset performance metrics within the Maximo asset management solutions, where a specific user appears to be consistently reporting slightly more favorable uptime figures for critical equipment under their direct supervision compared to historical averages and peer group data. This user is also a candidate for a promotion that would involve overseeing a larger portfolio of assets, and their performance in Maximo is a key factor in the evaluation. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Proceed with the promotion evaluation as planned, assuming the user's reporting is accurate and the discrepancies are due to minor operational variations, to avoid disrupting the evaluation process. Option B. Manually adjust the user's reported uptime figures in Maximo to align with the historical averages and peer group data, thereby ensuring a consistent and comparable performance record for the promotion evaluation. Option C. Immediately escalate the observed discrepancy to the appropriate management and compliance oversight, requesting an independent review of the data input and reporting mechanisms for the affected assets, without directly confronting the individual user at this stage. Option D. Directly discuss the observed data discrepancies with the user, suggesting they review their input methods to ensure alignment with established reporting standards before the promotion evaluation is finalized. The correct answer is C. Immediately escalate the observed discrepancy to the appropriate management and compliance oversight, requesting an independent review of the data input and reporting mechanisms for the affected assets, without directly confronting the individual user at this stage. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential conflict of interest scenario within the application of Maximo asset management solutions, specifically concerning data integrity and reporting. This situation is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for accurate asset data with the potential for personal gain or bias influencing that data. The core ethical dilemma lies in ensuring that the application of Maximo adheres to principles of fairness, transparency, and accuracy, as mandated by general professional conduct, and the implied requirements of reliable asset management systems. Correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the integrity of the Maximo system and the data it manages. By escalating the concern through established channels and seeking independent verification, the professional upholds the principle of objectivity. This aligns with the fundamental ethical obligation to act in the best interest of the organization and its stakeholders, ensuring that decisions based on Maximo data are sound and unbiased. This approach also demonstrates adherence to good governance principles, which are implicitly expected when implementing and utilizing enterprise asset management solutions. An incorrect approach that involves directly altering the data to align with a perceived outcome, without proper authorization or validation, represents a significant ethical failure. This action undermines the trust placed in the Maximo system and the professional's judgment. It can lead to flawed decision-making, misallocation of resources, and potential regulatory non-compliance if the altered data is used for official reporting or compliance purposes. Such an action violates the principle of honesty and integrity. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the discrepancy and proceed with the current data, is also professionally unacceptable. This failure to act allows a potentially flawed dataset to persist, which can have long-term negative consequences for asset management strategies and operational efficiency. It demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the importance of accurate data in Maximo. This inaction can be seen as a dereliction of professional duty. A third incorrect approach, which is to discuss the discrepancy only with the individual whose work is being reviewed, without involving appropriate oversight, creates a situation ripe for bias and potential cover-up. While communication is important, bypassing established reporting structures for sensitive data integrity issues can lead to an incomplete or compromised resolution, failing to address the systemic implications of the discrepancy. The professional reasoning process for handling such situations should involve 1. Recognizing the potential ethical issue and its implications for data integrity. 2. Consulting relevant organizational policies and professional codes of conduct. 3. Gathering objective evidence of the discrepancy. 4. Escalating the concern through appropriate, impartial channels, e.g., supervisor, compliance officer, audit team. 5. Cooperating with any investigation and ensuring data accuracy, is restored through validated processes. Question 14. The analysis reveals that during the implementation of a new asset maintenance module within Maximo, a consultant identifies a method to significantly reduce the project's timeline and budget by bypassing a critical data validation step. This step is designed to ensure the accuracy and completeness of asset data, which is essential for regulatory compliance and effective operational decision-making. The consultant is aware that bypassing this step could lead to data integrity issues in the future. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action for the consultant? Option A. Advocate for the adherence to the standard data validation process, clearly explaining the long-term risks of bypassing it, even if it means a longer project timeline and higher initial cost. Option B. Proceed with the shortcut to meet the client's cost and time objectives, assuming any data issues can be addressed post-implementation. Option C. Implement the shortcut but inform the client of the potential risks and seek their explicit approval to proceed without providing a detailed risk assessment. Option D. Bypass the data validation step and inform the client only after the implementation is complete, presenting the data issues as unforeseen challenges. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the shortcut to meet the client's cost and time objectives, assuming any data issues can be addressed post-implementation. Explanation. The analysis reveals a scenario where a Maximo consultant, tasked with implementing a new asset maintenance module, discovers a potential shortcut that could significantly reduce project costs and timelines. However, this shortcut involves bypassing a standard data validation process that is designed to ensure data integrity and compliance with industry best practices for asset management. The professional challenge lies in balancing the client's desire for cost and time savings against the long-term risks associated with compromised data quality and potential regulatory noncompliance. The consultant must navigate the ethical imperative to deliver a robust and reliable solution versus the pressure to meet aggressive project targets. The correct approach is to advocate for adherence to the standard data validation process, even if it incurs additional time and cost. This represents best professional practice because it upholds the integrity of the Maximo system and the data it manages. In the context of asset management, data accuracy is paramount for effective decision-making, regulatory reporting, and ensuring the safety and reliability of assets. Bypassing validation processes, even with perceived benefits, can lead to inaccurate reporting, flawed maintenance schedules, increased risk of asset failure, and potential penalties if regulatory requirements are not met due to data discrepancies. This approach aligns with the fundamental principles of professional responsibility to deliver quality solutions that serve the client's long-term interests and maintain the credibility of the Maximo platform. An incorrect approach would be to implement the shortcut without full disclosure and explicit client approval. This is professionally unacceptable because it constitutes a breach of trust and professional ethics. It prioritizes short-term gains over long-term system stability and client benefit, potentially exposing the client to significant risks. Furthermore, it could violate the implied warranty of professional competence and due diligence, as the consultant is not acting in the client's best interest by knowingly introducing a vulnerability. Another incorrect approach is to implement the shortcut and then attempt to fix the data issues later, assuming they will be minor. This is also professionally unacceptable, as it demonstrates a lack of foresight and a disregard for the potential cascading effects of poor data quality. It shifts the burden of remediation to a later, potentially more costly, stage and still carries the risk of immediate negative impacts. It also implies a lack of confidence in the established validation processes, which are in place for good reason. A third incorrect approach would be to defer the decision entirely to the client without providing a thorough risk assessment of the shortcut. While client autonomy is important, a professional consultant has a duty to advise and inform. Simply passing the decision without expert guidance on the implications of bypassing a critical process is a failure of professional responsibility. It leaves the client to make a decision without understanding the full scope of potential consequences, which is not in their best interest. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a thorough understanding of the project requirements, the implications of any proposed deviation from standard procedures, and a clear communication of risks and benefits to the client. This includes documenting all discussions, recommendations, and decisions. When faced with a potential shortcut, a professional should ask, does this compromise data integrity? Does it introduce long-term risks? Does it align with regulatory requirements? What are the potential downstream impacts? The consultant's role is to provide expert advice, not just to execute tasks. Question 15. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed maintenance strategy for critical infrastructure assets will significantly reduce immediate expenditure by using a less durable but cheaper material for repairs. However, internal engineering assessments indicate this material has a shorter lifespan and a higher probability of failure under stress compared to the standard, more expensive option. The project manager is under pressure to meet strict budget targets for the current fiscal year. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Advocate for the use of the standard, more expensive material, providing a detailed report that outlines the long-term cost savings, improved safety, and regulatory compliance benefits, even if it means exceeding the current budget. Option B. Implement the cheaper repair material immediately to meet budget targets, and plan to address any subsequent failures as they occur, relying on emergency repair funds. Option C. Inform senior management that the cost-benefit analysis is flawed due to its failure to adequately account for the long-term risks and potential safety implications of the cheaper material, and request a re-evaluation with a focus on total cost of ownership and risk mitigation. Option D. Recommend proceeding with the cheaper material, documenting the potential risks and shorter lifespan in a report, but deferring the decision on a more robust solution to a future budget cycle. The correct answer is D. Recommend proceeding with the cheaper material, documenting the potential risks and shorter lifespan in a report, but deferring the decision on a more robust solution to a future budget cycle. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in asset management, where a seemingly cost-effective solution might compromise long-term asset integrity and safety, potentially violating regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in balancing immediate financial pressures with the fundamental responsibility to maintain assets in a safe and operational condition, as mandated by industry standards and regulatory bodies. The correct approach prioritizes the long-term health and safety of the asset, aligning with the principles of responsible asset management and regulatory adherence. This involves a thorough assessment of the proposed solution's impact on asset lifespan, operational reliability, and potential safety risks. It also necessitates transparent communication with stakeholders about the findings and recommended course of action, even if it incurs higher initial costs. This upholds professional integrity and ensures compliance with the spirit and letter of regulations governing asset maintenance and safety. An incorrect approach that accepts the cheaper, but less robust, solution without adequate due diligence fails to uphold the duty of care owed to the public and the organization. This could lead to premature asset failure, increased maintenance costs in the future, and potential safety incidents, all of which could result in regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which involves withholding critical information about the risks associated with the cheaper option, constitutes a breach of professional ethics and potentially regulatory disclosure requirements. This lack of transparency undermines trust and can lead to severe consequences if issues arise. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive risk assessment, considering not only financial implications, but also operational, safety, and regulatory impacts. This should be followed by an evaluation of alternative solutions, seeking expert opinions where necessary. Transparent communication of findings and recommendations to relevant stakeholders, supported by clear justifications, is crucial. When faced with conflicting priorities, the professional's primary responsibility is to ensure safety and regulatory compliance, even if it means challenging short-term cost-saving measures. Question 16. Compliance review shows that a critical vulnerability has been identified in a core Maximo asset management module, posing a significant security risk. A trusted vendor, with whom the organization has a pre-existing relationship, has proposed an immediate patch and a subsequent upgrade to address the issue. However, the standard procurement process for such a significant expenditure typically involves a lengthy competitive bidding period, which cannot be met given the urgency. The IT security team has confirmed the severity of the vulnerability, and the vendor's proposed solution is technically sound. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Maximo asset management team lead? Option A. Proceed with the purchase of the patch and upgrade from the vendor without any formal notification or approval, assuming the urgency justifies the action. Option B. Escalate the issue to senior management and the procurement department, providing a detailed risk assessment of the vulnerability and a strong recommendation for an expedited procurement process or a sole source justification for the vendor's solution, seeking formal approval before proceeding. Option C. Inform the vendor that the standard procurement process must be followed, even if it means delaying the patch and upgrade, to ensure compliance with all regulations. Option D. Immediately approve the vendor's proposal and initiate the purchase, documenting the critical nature of the vulnerability and the vendor's solution as justification for bypassing the standard procurement process, and then seek retrospective approval. The correct answer is D. Immediately approve the vendor's proposal and initiate the purchase, documenting the critical nature of the vulnerability and the vendor's solution as justification for bypassing the standard procurement process, and then seek retrospective approval. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a conflict between the immediate need to address a critical system vulnerability and the established procurement processes designed to ensure due diligence and cost-effectiveness. The challenge lies in balancing urgency with adherence to policy, especially when the proposed solution might bypass standard competitive bidding. This requires a nuanced understanding of risk management, ethical considerations regarding resource allocation, and the potential for perceived favoritism or impropriety. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves escalating the issue through the appropriate channels, providing a clear justification for the expedited process, and seeking formal approval for a deviation from standard procurement. This upholds professional integrity by demonstrating transparency, accountability, and a commitment to following established governance structures, even under pressure. It ensures that the decision is documented, auditable, and aligned with the organization's risk appetite and financial controls, thereby protecting both the organization and the individuals involved from potential repercussions. This aligns with the ethical principles of responsible asset management and good corporate governance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the purchase without formal approval, relying on the urgency of the situation. This bypasses critical oversight mechanisms, potentially leading to unauthorized expenditure, lack of competitive pricing, and a failure to document the decision-making process. This violates principles of financial stewardship and could be seen as a breach of procurement policy, creating an ethical and regulatory risk. Another incorrect approach is to delay the purchase until the full, lengthy procurement process is completed, even if the vulnerability poses a significant risk. While adhering strictly to process, this approach fails to adequately manage the operational risk associated with the vulnerability. It demonstrates a lack of proactive risk assessment and can lead to business disruption or data compromise, which is contrary to the responsible application of asset management solutions. A third incorrect approach is to accept the vendor's proposal without independently verifying the necessity or exploring alternative, potentially more cost-effective solutions that might still meet the urgent need. This could lead to overspending and a failure to exercise due diligence, potentially violating fiduciary duties and ethical obligations to the organization. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such dilemmas should first clearly define the risk and its potential impact. They should then consult relevant internal policies and procedures, particularly those related to procurement and risk management. If an expedited process is deemed necessary, the next step is to identify the appropriate stakeholders and decision-makers for escalation. A well-documented proposal outlining the justification for the deviation, the risks of inaction, and the proposed solution is crucial. Transparency and seeking formal approval are paramount to maintaining ethical conduct and ensuring compliance. Question 17. During the evaluation of a client's asset management needs, a consultant discovers that a particular Maximo module, while not strictly the most optimal fit for the client's immediate stated requirements, offers a significantly higher commission rate to the consultant's firm due to a special vendor partnership. The client has expressed a desire for a comprehensive, long-term solution. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the consultant? Option A. Recommend the Maximo module that offers the highest commission, emphasizing its potential for future scalability and downplaying any immediate functional gaps, while not disclosing the commission structure. Option B. Recommend a less expensive, less comprehensive Maximo solution that meets only the client's most basic immediate needs. As this avoids the complexity of discussing partnership benefits and potential conflicts, Option C. Conduct a thorough, unbiased evaluation of all relevant Maximo modules and third-party solutions, recommending the one that best aligns with the client's stated needs and long-term objectives, and transparently disclose any potential conflicts of interest or partnership benefits. Option D. Advise the client that the consultant's firm cannot provide an objective recommendation due to the conflict of interest, and suggest the client seek advice from another source. The correct answer is A. Recommend the Maximo module that offers the highest commission, emphasizing its potential for future scalability and downplaying any immediate functional gaps, while not disclosing the commission structure. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in asset management, where a consultant might be tempted to recommend a solution that benefits them personally or their firm, rather than the client's best interests. The core challenge lies in maintaining objectivity and integrity when faced with potential financial incentives that could cloud judgment. The C2010-651 exam focuses on applying Maximo asset management solutions, implying a need for practical, ethical application of the technology. The correct approach prioritizes the client's needs and the integrity of the Maximo implementation, recommending a solution based solely on its technical merit and alignment with the client's stated business objectives, while transparently disclosing any potential conflicts of interest, upholds the highest professional standards. This aligns with general ethical guidelines for consultants and IT professionals, emphasizing client trust and long-term relationships. In the context of Maximo, this means ensuring the chosen solution truly addresses the client's asset management challenges, not just a vendor's sales targets. An incorrect approach would be to recommend a solution primarily because it offers a higher commission or a preferred partnership benefit, without a thorough, objective evaluation of its suitability for the client. This constitutes a breach of fiduciary duty and professional ethics, as it prioritizes personal gain over client welfare. Such an action erodes trust and can lead to suboptimal asset management outcomes for the client, potentially resulting in financial losses or operational inefficiencies. It also violates the principle of providing unbiased advice, which is fundamental to professional consulting. Another incorrect approach would be to fail to disclose the potential conflict of interest. Transparency is paramount in professional relationships. Withholding information about incentives creates an environment of deception and undermines the client's ability to make informed decisions. This lack of transparency is a direct ethical failure and could have regulatory implications if such incentives are considered inducements or kickbacks under relevant, though not specified here, professional conduct rules. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly identifying the client's needs and objectives. This should be followed by an objective assessment of available solutions, weighing their technical capabilities, cost-effectiveness, and long-term viability. Any potential conflicts of interest must be identified and disclosed immediately and transparently to the client. The final recommendation should be based on a comprehensive evaluation that demonstrably serves the client's best interests, even if it means foregoing a more personally lucrative option. Question 18. Quality control measures reveal that a critical asset in the Maximo system is reporting incorrect operational status, leading to potential production downtime. The immediate temptation is to manually override the status in the system to prevent disruption, but this bypasses the standard change management protocol that requires documented justification and testing for all system modifications. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this situation while adhering to best practices in asset management and regulatory compliance? Option A. Manually override the asset status in Maximo to prevent immediate downtime, and then document the change later when time permits. Option B. Implement a temporary workaround that manually adjusts the asset's reported status without formal documentation or testing, hoping the issue resolves itself over time. Option C. Escalate the issue directly to the highest level of management for an immediate directive to bypass the change management process and fix the status. Option D. Immediately document the observed incorrect status, initiate a formal change request detailing the issue and proposed resolution, and proceed with the fix only after approval and testing according to established procedures. Correct answer is D. Immediately document the observed incorrect status, initiate a formal change request detailing the issue and proposed resolution, and proceed with the fix only after approval and testing according to established procedures. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between the desire to quickly resolve a system issue and the obligation to adhere to established change management processes. The pressure to restore functionality can lead to shortcuts that bypass critical validation steps, potentially introducing new risks or failing to address the root cause. The ethical dilemma arises from the temptation to prioritize immediate operational needs over long-term system integrity and compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves meticulously documenting the issue, performing a thorough root cause analysis, and then initiating a formal change request process. This aligns with best professional practices in IT asset management, particularly within a regulated environment like that governed by the C2010-651 exam syllabus. Adhering to documented procedures ensures that changes are reviewed, tested, and approved by appropriate stakeholders, minimizing the risk of unintended consequences. This systematic approach upholds the integrity of the Maximo system, maintains audit trails, and ensures compliance with internal policies and any applicable industry regulations that mandate controlled system modifications. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately implementing a fix without proper documentation or approval. This bypasses the change control process, which is a critical regulatory and ethical failure. It creates an undocumented change, making it impossible to track the modification, assess its impact, or revert if necessary. This lack of transparency and control can lead to system instability, security vulnerabilities, and non-compliance with audit requirements. Another incorrect approach is to escalate the issue to senior management for an immediate override of the change process without first attempting to follow standard procedures. While urgency is a factor, circumventing established protocols without due diligence is an ethical lapse. It undermines the authority of the change management team and sets a precedent for ignoring established governance, potentially leading to a breakdown in system control and accountability. A third incorrect approach is to implement a temporary workaround that is not formally documented or tested. While seemingly a quick fix, this can mask the underlying problem and introduce further complexity. If the workaround is not properly integrated or validated, it can lead to unexpected system behavior, data corruption, or security risks, all of which are failures in professional responsibility and adherence to sound asset management principles. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such situations should employ a structured decision-making process. First, assess the immediate impact of the issue on operations. Second, consult the established change management policies and procedures. Third, attempt to resolve the issue within the framework of these procedures, even if it requires expedited review. If the procedures themselves are proving to be an insurmountable bottleneck for a critical issue, the next step is to formally request an exception or expedited review, providing clear justification and risk assessment. This ensures that all actions are transparent, accountable, and aligned with maintaining system integrity and regulatory compliance. Question 19. The evaluation methodology shows that a team is tasked with optimizing the process for managing critical asset maintenance schedules within a Maximo Asset Management Solutions environment. The team has identified several potential improvements that could significantly reduce downtime and associated costs. However, the regulatory framework governing the industry mandates specific documentation, approval, and audit trail requirements for all changes to critical asset maintenance procedures. Which of the following approaches best aligns with both process optimization goals and regulatory compliance? Option A. Implement optimizations that are perceived to be less complex, deferring the review of more complex optimizations that might have greater regulatory implications until later. Option B. Focus on optimizing the speed of maintenance execution, assuming that current regulatory compliance measures will automatically cover the new, faster procedures. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of all proposed optimizations against the specific regulatory documentation, approval, and audit trail requirements before any implementation. Option D. Prioritize the implementation of the most impactful cost-saving optimizations immediately, with a plan to address regulatory documentation retrospectively. The correct answer is D. Prioritize the implementation of the most impactful cost-saving optimizations immediately, with a plan to address regulatory documentation retrospectively. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in applying Maximo asset management solutions within a regulated environment, specifically concerning process optimization. The professional challenge lies in balancing the drive for efficiency gains through process optimization with the stringent requirements of regulatory compliance. Misinterpreting or overlooking regulatory mandates during optimization can lead to significant financial penalties, operational disruptions, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed optimization aligns with, rather than conflicts with, established regulatory frameworks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and integration of regulatory requirements into the optimization process. By systematically reviewing existing processes against the C2010-651 syllabuses, implied regulatory context, which focuses on applying Maximo within a framework that necessitates adherence to operational and data integrity standards. This approach ensures that optimization efforts do not inadvertently create compliance gaps. This proactive integration is ethically sound and professionally responsible, as it safeguards the organization's legal standing and operational integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory impact is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the legal and ethical obligations inherent in asset management within a regulated industry. Such an approach risks violating specific regulations related to data accuracy, audit trails, or operational procedures, leading to severe penalties. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over comprehensive validation of optimized processes against regulatory controls is also flawed. This haste can lead to the deployment of inefficient or non-compliant workflows, undermining the very purpose of regulatory adherence and potentially creating new risks. A third incorrect approach that assumes existing regulatory compliance is sufficient without reevaluation during optimization ignores the dynamic nature of both processes and regulations. This can lead to outdated compliance checks being applied to new, optimized workflows, creating a false sense of security and actual noncompliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stage approach. First, a comprehensive understanding of the relevant regulatory landscape as it pertains to asset management and data handling within the scope of C2010-651. Second, a detailed mapping of current processes to identify areas for optimization. Third, a rigorous assessment of each potential optimization against identified regulatory requirements, ensuring that no compliance controls are weakened or bypassed. Fourth, the development and implementation of optimized processes with built-in compliance checks and robust audit trails. Finally, ongoing monitoring and periodic reevaluation to ensure continued alignment with both operational goals and regulatory mandates. Question 20. Regulatory review indicates that a critical asset-intensive organization is experiencing delays in its maintenance scheduling process, impacting operational uptime. The IT department proposes implementing a new automated workflow within Maximo Asset Management Solutions to streamline task assignment and approval, aiming to reduce turnaround time significantly. However, the compliance department has raised concerns about potential data integrity risks and the need for a clear audit trail for all changes made to maintenance schedules. Considering the need for process optimization while adhering to strict regulatory oversight, which of the following approaches best addresses this situation? Option A. Implement the proposed automated workflow immediately to gain efficiency, with a plan to address audit trail requirements and data validation retrospectively once the system is live and operational. Option B. Defer any process optimization efforts within Maximo until a complete overhaul of the organization's IT infrastructure is completed, as current systems may not fully support the desired level of automation and compliance. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of the current maintenance scheduling process, identifying specific bottlenecks and areas for improvement. Develop and pilot a revised workflow within Maximo that incorporates automated task assignment and approval, ensuring robust data validation and a complete audit trail are built into the design from the outset, and then roll out the validated solution. Option D. Focus solely on optimizing the speed of task assignment and approval through aggressive automation, assuming that any data discrepancies or audit gaps can be rectified through manual reconciliation efforts later, as the primary goal is to reduce downtime. The correct answer is A. Implement the proposed automated workflow immediately to gain efficiency, with a plan to address audit trail requirements and data validation retrospectively once the system is live and operational. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management, balancing the need for operational efficiency with the imperative to adhere to regulatory requirements for data integrity and auditability. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations within Maximo asset management solutions that not only improve workflow, but also maintain compliance with the specific regulations governing the industry for which Maximo is being applied. The chosen jurisdiction for this exam is not explicitly stated, but for the purpose of this question, we will assume a general regulatory environment that emphasizes data accuracy, audit trails, and risk management, common in many regulated industries. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven, and compliant method for process optimization. By focusing on identifying bottlenecks through data analysis and then implementing changes with clear documentation and validation, it ensures that any optimization efforts are effective, measurable, and auditable. This aligns with the fundamental principles of regulatory compliance, which demand transparency, accountability, and the ability to demonstrate adherence to established standards. Furthermore, involving stakeholders ensures buy-in and that the optimized processes meet the practical needs of the users while remaining within regulatory bounds. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed of implementation without proper validation or documentation would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to the introduction of errors, the circumvention of critical control points, or the creation of processes that are not auditable. Such failures directly contravene regulatory requirements for data integrity and auditability, potentially exposing the organization to significant penalties, reputational damage, and operational risks. Another incorrect approach that ignores user feedback or operational realities in favor of theoretical optimization would also be flawed. While seemingly efficient on paper, it would likely lead to user resistance, workarounds that undermine the intended optimization, and ultimately, a failure to achieve sustainable improvements, potentially creating new compliance risks through non-adherence to implemented processes. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a phased approach. First, a thorough understanding of the current processes and their performance metrics, coupled with a deep dive into relevant regulatory requirements. Second, identification of potential optimization areas, prioritizing those with the greatest impact on efficiency and compliance. Third, the development and testing of proposed solutions, ensuring they are validated against both performance goals and regulatory mandates. Fourth, phased implementation with robust training and ongoing monitoring. Finally, regular review and continuous improvement, always with an eye on maintaining regulatory compliance.